Hey, everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back with you for the 200th, number 200 Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom calls. We're starting out with 28 people, and it is great to see everybody. We have a very, very full agenda in these last days of the Republic, as it were. We really we can start with John Brakey and with Ray Lutz and others who are really expert and have a lot to say about how this election was conducted and whether it wasn't legitimate. I think a lot of people have questions, of course, as we do now after every election. And we want to talk about this Iowa pollster that Trump now wants to investigate, down ballot North Carolina results. But we do have our great experts, John Brakey and Ray Lutz, to join us and give us some inside information. We're also going to talk in the second half hour. I think Dennis Bernstein is going to join us and talk a bit about some of the technical issues as well. Second half hour, we want to talk about Blue Sky and alternatives to Twitter or X. I mean, apparently this new internet service, which I tend to refer to as Blueski because my grandchildren watch this thing Bluey. I see nobody laughing. So, how many of you have grandchildren? Anyway, so we're going to talk about an alternative media service. Second hour, we're going to get into the evangelicals and ask the big question: what do evangelicals really want? I mean, I'd like to know, or maybe I don't want to know, what a world that will be run by likes of Steve Bannon would really look like. And we're also going to talk about a very interesting group therapy service from a guy I knew way back when, but in Louisville, but looks very, very interesting, and I think people should be introduced to it. And then in the third half hour, around 6:30 Eastern time, we are going to talk with Kevin Camps and Ron Leonard about the energy situation. We have a new Secretary of Energy, of course, that Trump wants to put in, who hates solar energy. There you go. Secretary of Energy who hates solar. But in all fairness, we have to remember that no one has done more damage to the solar energy industry than Gavin Newsom. And, you know, Vinny's shaking his head. By the way, Vinny, condolences on your mom. Our best wishes to you. Our buddy Vinny has lost his mom. I know what that feels like, but mine went away 30 years ago. So you were lucky, Vinny, to have her 30 years longer than me. Anyway, it's great to see everybody. We will not meet next week, by the way. Next week is Thanksgiving week. And so we'll take that one off, and we'll rejoin everybody in 2 weeks from now. So a ton to speak of. Mike Hirsch, you said you had someone on you wanted to give us a quick word.
Mike Hirsch? We're waiting for Chuck Pinocchio.
Okay,
and as soon as he comes in, I'll let you know.
Okay, we're also waiting, I think, for John Brakey. We do have Jennifer Karius, who talked to us a while ago about working the polls in Pennsylvania. And you called me earlier, Jennifer. Did you want to give us a quick talk about what you wanted to talk about? It was very interesting, you having worked the polls in Pennsylvania. You had a couple things to say. And we're going to get really deep into the weeds here. People want to speak about their feelings about how the election turned out. Now is the time. This is really something to do.
Sluggo, John Brakey actually got here before you, so he's been with us.
Oh, he's here. John Brakey, but I did call Jennifer. I know you want to be brief, so let's let you get in there before we lose track, and then we'll go to John Brakey. Okay, John, you're with us?
I certainly am. Thank you, Harvey.
All right. Well, JEN KARIUS, go ahead and give us
yeah, thank you so much, Harvey. No, I don't have anything. I was just still looking for people who were interested in who had any experiences in Pennsylvania. I'm not officially tracking anything at this point, but I am collecting information from people I know on the ground here.
Okay, so listen, if you worked the polls in Pennsylvania and you looked at the election in technical terms, Jen Karius, Jen, if you want to put your contacts in the chat, that would be fine. You did give us a very interesting report a while ago, and I know you're in the information gathering stage. So if you do want to be in touch with people, go ahead, put your a link in the chat, and if you have someone something to say, if you were involved with the administration in any way, shape, or form of the election in Pennsylvania, you may want to get in touch with Jen, because I know she did some really interesting research to start, and that's how we do on this call. We put people together, and it's a very important stuff. So thank you, Jen. Anything else you want to say before we move on? Okay.
No,
John
just still
Blakey.
looking at the voter registration and absentee ballot side mostly.
Well, the Pennsylvania election was really, are they still contesting the Senate seat? I think they are. I think the U.S. Senate seat in Pennsylvania is still being fought over.
Yeah, I think that's why I didn't feel prepared to speak today, but I suppose it's still unfolding since we haven't heard any other announcement. So, but I don't feel qualified to speak at this moment. But hopefully, like you said, maybe a couple, in a week or two, we'll have more.
Well, a couple of weeks. We will reconvene in a couple of weeks, and we'll hear from you. See if you found anything additional about Pennsylvania. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. So, John Brakey, you are in Arizona, but apparently from your backdrop, I know the radio listeners can't see it, but you appear to be in the Matrix. It seems to, well, it's probably because of your astonishing resemblance to Keanu Reeves. But John, do you want to give us an update on what has happened in Arizona? We had an outcome where the Democrats lost the presidency, but won the Senate seat. Is that right? Oh, you're muted. Hold on.
I'm
here.
muted. Okay, exactly,
go.
Harvey, is that Trump took the state quite big, okay? But Lake didn't make it, fortunately, okay? And so what's going on? That's kind of weird, isn't it?
It
'Cause
is.
he won
It's
by a huge
common.
amount, and she lost by 40 or 50. So there's a spread there of a couple of 100,000 votes. And I think that's what Spoonamore is spooked by, is because of that big difference. And I want to know too. And that's why I fight for these cast vote records, and I fight for the ballot images, because nobody should walk away from a ballot box wondering if it was real or not. You know what scares me? Okay, is that we're going to go mega now. Okay, we're going to be the deniers eventually, because we're not going to get resolved in what happened. Okay, and it will peel people away. My personal feeling, I don't know who really won. I know that Trump got the most votes, supposedly, okay? But, there are serious allegations going on about using, Starlink, the bomb threats. By the way, I'm chasing the CD6 race, okay? And guess what? Pima County got a bomb threat, okay? So didn't Cochise County. So didn't Maricopa. 5 of the counties that I'm chasing in the CD6 race, if they have to recount through a machine to count 360,000 ballots, they will have to run 1.5 million or more.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, John Brakey, you're the expert on certainly on Arizona, and on you're the pioneer of digital imaging on hand paper ballots. Remember, the left was the original, at least in the 21st century, the whole field of questioning election outcomes started with Greg Palast in Florida, questioning the stripping of the voter rolls.
Yep.
And then in 2004, we saw, at least 100 different ways that the election was messed with. And then in 2016, it also came from the left, although it was shunned by Hillary Clinton. Jill Stein went in and questioned Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. It really wasn't until 2020 that the Republicans, the Trump people, started questioning, election verity. Sooner or later, we're going to get some kind of answer on this, and we will. Now, there, and you'll hear it first on this call. Let's put it that way. There is a guy, a very well-known guy. He's been with us a long time with a very serious computer background named Spoonamore. He was on with Tom Hartman earlier today, and our erstwhile engineer, Steve Caruso, listened in. Steve, do you want to give us a thumbnail of what Mr. Spoonamore had to say? And again,
can I add a final thought before I leave?
Of course. Well,
Okay.
I hope it's not your final thought, John.
Well, you know, not
we want you back in a
either,
couple of weeks.
But the big thing is this. You know, Ray Letts has a great system. We got a simple system that's Microsoft Office. We are in the Goldilocks zone right now, because eventually in a few weeks, we're going to go back to the United States of amnesia, okay? Because it's just too painful to really deal what the hell's going on in this country, okay? And where it's heading. Right now, Georgia is releasing ballot images, and you can get the cast vote record. I would be glad to teach people over a Zoom, because it really is that easy to run. Because once you see this, you know, I had a guy in today who works with the Ingalls campaign, and he couldn't believe how fast I could get a precinct pulled up and then start testing it with using images. And I urge everybody, if they have Microsoft Office and have just a little bit of experience on Excel, there's not many buttons to push. That's the good thing about it. We need to deep dive the data, because there is bad things happening, and we have to go ahead and start dealing with it by knowing if we got a real election or not. And thank you, Harvey, for having me on.
Well, thank you. You know, we've been working on this. This is 24 years now since Florida 2000, and we are 100% certain that the non-winner was made president of the United States in 2000. And we think it true again in 2004 and maybe 2016. So, and Trump says 2020. So sooner or later, we're going to have to settle on a consensus on what's a real election. This country obviously can't go on like this. Tatanka Bricka, hi, glad to have you with us, the chair of the KPFK board, and John Steiner, good to see you with us. Steven, and we have ILENE Proctor is going to give us a report from North Carolina. First, we want to hear from Steve Caruso, our engineer, with a report on what Steve Spoonamore said on Tom Hartman today. Steve, can you give us tell us the inside scoop here? What did go ahead?
Yeah, very short. From what I saw, and maybe somebody else could speak to it. By the way, Steven Rosenfeld is here, pivotal journalist and coverage of the 2004 election stuff.
Hi, Steve. How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, if somebody else wants to speak to it, feel free and raise your hand. But the whole thing with Spoonamore, and he's been going over this for the past week or so, about the bullet ballots, and all these states are coming up with these ballots that are just a vote for the president. The bullet ballots, and they're thinking somebody hacked the system, and the only way to define whether that happened or not is to count the vote manually. He sent a letter to Kamala Harris. He said he had 6 people, direct contacts there, supposedly, and none of them say that she's read the letter or gotten hold of it. It's all over the internet. It's all over the planet. Let's go, folks. Let's wake up and smell the vote.
Whatever.
Here.
So, but the bottom line, what is a bullet ballot? Can you explain, please?
Bullet ballot is a ballot where somebody just votes for the president. That's it. No down ballot votes, no nothing, just the president. And there was a total influx of ballots for President Trump. So they suspect that the thing could have been hacked at the tabulator, not the tabulator level, but the software level where they go into the machines. And there's a video. This is not Spoonamore, but there's a video out on Twitter, and that guy's name is Jim Stewart's son, and he's got audio. Pat Byrne, who's the CEO of Overstock, and General Flynn supposedly talking about the hack. And whether, it's like plausible deniability, they don't know anything about it, but they got together and and Byrne was about ready to give up and move to Switzerland and so forth and so on. And then he got a call from General Flynn, and they were going to fix this. And the whole thing is like, we didn't want a color revolution. We didn't want, the liberals taking, and they're trying to steal it. And they're, the legitimate vote count by anybody is not the Democrats stealing it. Okay, let's get that from the start. So if we want to check those ballots, we have to count them. Harris has to bring it up and say, we want to recount. That's what Spoonamore was saying.
I can tell you, likely in 2016, Bob Petrakis and raised some alarms about the outcome in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, which sent the election from Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump. And Jill Stein, who had standing as the Green Party candidate, went into those states in the middle of winter, and she actually got pneumonia. And she went into Michigan with Bob and some other lawyers and got a court decision. And the judge said, yes, we have to, there's stuff in Michigan that looks fishy, and we have to have a recount. But Jill Stein, under the law, you don't have a chance, a reasonable chance of winning. And under the law, only a potential winner can sue for a recount. Therefore,
that's the new law. Okay,
well,
I was up there for that.
Right.
Yeah, and they changed it after that because she did have the right, but she would have to put up the money.
Right.
And that's where they raised $7 million to be able to cover the expenses.
But there were lawyers from Hillary Clinton's campaign in the courtroom when that decision was delivered to Jill Stein, who was just about to keel over from pneumonia. And the lawyers said, let's call, this is a paraphrase, but the lawyers said, well, let's call Hillary. And the Democrats refused to agree to have a recount in Michigan in 2016, which could have flipped the election from Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton. And then Hillary Clinton had the unmitigated gall, if you don't mind my saying so, and we are a nonpartisan call here, but this is outrageous what she did. She later on blamed Jill Stein for flipping the election to Donald Trump. When Jill Stein killed herself going up to Michigan to demand a recount and win the right to a recount for Hillary Clinton, who turned it down. I mean,
but they were there. I want you to know that the Democrats would come to me and Chris and other Greens and independents, and they say, hey, make this challenge. You know what I'm saying? They were ordered to stand down but watch everything, and they were very sympathetic, but somebody tied their hands together is what they did. And if I could just say one other thing very important.
Threw him off a bridge. I will say very quickly, John, that in our experience in Florida 2000 and Ohio 2004, the Democrats have been far more hostile to looking at election outcomes than Republicans. Yeah. And when we challenged the Republicans in Florida 2000 and then in Ohio 2004, they said, okay, we don't care. It was the Democrats who were attacking us for questioning an election that had been gone, to the Republicans. And it's still the case. If you think that Kamala Harris is going to approve a recount and an in-depth exploration of what happened in this election, more power to you. The Democrats can jump off a cliff as far as I'm concerned when it comes to really looking into the outcome of these elections. John Brakey, go ahead. And then
this is very important what I'm going to say, and some people may get angry, but no hand count's going to happen. Okay, and I'll tell you why. Okay, let's use Maricopa and most of Arizona. We vote in voting centers. Okay, we had a 2-ballot system. That means instead of counting 2.4 million ballots, you'd have to handle 4.4 million ballots. Okay. And nothing is by precinct, people. They pack this stuff away in batches. In order to make one precinct in Maricopa, and their precincts are about 8,000 people, you might have to open up 3,000 boxes and sort through there to find the image. Hopefully they finally put the inkjet in. Maricopa is a very, very good election department. I've watched them very closely this election, okay? And Pima, because in 2006, we passed a law and we put cameras in. And they were bad cameras at first, but my God, they're broadcasting in high definition in Maricopa County. But getting back to it, a simple thing, and I keep saying this, we need 2 records to know if it was stolen or not. You need the cast vote record and you need the ballot images. And you can sort them by precinct. You can count them, you can deep dive them, okay? And if you find something, then we have something to work with. But
you also got to remember
think that they're going to go ahead and start hand counting. If it was precincts, they could say, okay, we'll give you 2 or 3 precincts and you can count them. That would be cool if we could pick them that way. But you can't without opening all the boxes.
And then we're talking with John Brakey, who did this, who knows this inside and out. I will say in 2004 in Ohio, we went in to the county seats, Bob Petrakis and I, and there's a picture of me, weirdly enough, in the annex of the county seat in some county in rural Ohio, trying to look through the paper ballots. I mean, it's ridiculous. But, John has raised an important point here. If people think that there's going to be a recount on hand-marked paper ballots, it's not going to happen. It's not physically possible. That's why. And they're less accurate than the digital scanning.
And we want to outsource the truth. We want everybody.
There you go.
Okay? That's how simple. I can take Pima County, and they have 350 precincts. I can run it all up. Then I can start releasing everything by precinct, put the images in the cloud. You get the cast vote record database, Excel, and then you learn how to run it. And then you start pushing a number and look what pops up. Oh, a ballot image. Okay.
Okay.
And then you check the whole row. Okay. This is what we have to have.
Right. And we've been on this case. This is 24 years now of trying to get these elections right. And who knows when we're going to do it. The other thing, of course, which Greg Palast has raised, which is maybe the most important issue of all, is the stripping of the voter rolls. And Greg Palast's film Vigilantes, talks very clearly about what they did in Georgia, where anybody can challenge, 20, 30, 40,000 voters and have them knocked off the voter rolls. And we don't know where that's happened all over the country. We know they did it in Ohio 2004 and in Florida 2000. So how many, if you're looking at the outcomes of a lowered Democratic turnout, who knows what role the stripping of the voter rolls played, and how are we ever going to find out? I do want to mention, by the way, that Dorothy Fadiman is on the call. Dorothy has made some great movies about election protection. It's great to have her here. Dorothy, good to see you. And I will point out that Dorothy's husband is a pioneer of the microdosing movement, and I will say that the outcome of this election has led many people to macro dosing, but we won't go into that right now. We do have 78 people with us. MYLA, go ahead, please. MYLA RESON.
Thanks, Harvey. And I'd like to say that we have David Feldman with us, which is really fantastic. And I'm hoping, I noticed that he joined the call, and he has a wonderful YouTube show, the Mop Up, that has really taken off, and a great international audience. But I
David Feldman, you want to say hi? I don't see you, and you can put your link in the chat if you want. David Feldman, where are you? I'm looking through wherever you are, raise your hand and we'll let you put your stuff in the chat. Go ahead, MYLA, please.
Thank you so much, MYLA. Hello, everybody.
Oh, there you go, David Feldman.
Thank you.
And put your link in the chat. I think I've been on your show, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Keep going. Any show that MYLA is a friend of mine.
I agree.
Go ahead. MYLA, you wanted to jump in, and then we're also joined by Dennis Bernstein, the host of the Flashpoints show, and I want to give him a word in a minute. Go ahead, MYLA.
So as Steve was saying, our engineer, there have been letters sent to Kamala Harris urging her to take a look at the election results and to do some kind of forensic analysis and look to see whether in fact the outcome is can be trusted. And one of the people who wrote to her is a man named Spoonamore. What's his first name, Harvey?
Steve Spoonamore. He's a computer expert. He has a history with the credit card industry, I believe.
And so I'd like to share his letter to Harris. He wrote it, he published it on his Substack, and he calls it a duty to warn letter. He has now written 2 duty to warn letters to Harris, and I put the link to the second letter in the chat. And basically he outlines his credentials, and he says that he is a lifelong Republican who has long placed service and participatory democracy over party, and that he has worked for the Department of Defense, the Department of Health, Department of State, et cetera, et cetera. And what he said in bold in this second letter is that he says, in my professional view, there are multiple and extremely clear indications the presidential vote was willfully compromised.
He says she should reverse her concession also there.
Right. Right. So I think that it's worth looking at what he had to say. There was another letter that was written that he signed on to, that was written by or headed up by the chair emeritus of the computing engineering department at the University of South Carolina, Duncan Buell. And that was reported on by Brad Friedman. Brad Friedman interviewed Buell last week. And I hope that we can have Mr. Buell on. I was going to try to invite him today, but maybe we can get him when we come back from break.
Yeah, after Thanksgiving, I would like to get Mr. Spoonamore. He's been involved for a long time. He was on the scene after Ohio 2004. Steve Rosenfeld may remember that. I think the chances of getting Kamala Harris to react to this, if our experience with Hillary Clinton and John Kerry is any indicator, is slim to none, as Dizzy Dean used to say. But you know, we can try. But we'll have Mr. Spoonamore on in 2 weeks, and John Brakey will return from the Matrix. And okay, we're still on. MYLA, did you want to say anything else? I want you, MYLA, in a few minutes to get us into Substack and Bluey
Blue
there.
Sky. We'll talk about Blue Sky later.
Okay, in a few minutes, actually, not too long from now.
Okay.
I want to get ILENE Proctor, and then Dennis Bernstein has joined us. ILENE, I'm going to unmute you. You are in Asheville, North Carolina, and tell us what happened. You know, talking about a disparity between the presidential vote and the down ballot vote. What happened in North Carolina?
Okay. While I live now in Asheville, North Carolina, my sister lives in Hendersonville, so I participated more in Hendersonville politics. Hendersonville was notably red. All the environs around Asheville are red, deep, deep red. However, with this election, there was so much enthusiasm for Harris. There was so many people who attended all of the Democratic meetings. They were bursting at the seams. They never had enough chairs. I myself did canvassing, and I asked for unaffiliated voters when I went out. And every single unaffiliated voter was for Harris. what finally happened is that Hendersonville and topped Asheville in terms of Democratic voter turnout. And the final analysis is that we got rid of the gerrymandering. We peopled in almost every single division of the North Carolina cabinet with responsible politicians, from Josh Stein, Mo Green. That was an incredibly important election because he was head of the school board and very diligent about it, as opposed to his opponent, who literally wanted to execute on her platform, execute Biden and Obama. So we handily did that, and the Black Nazi, Mark Robinson.
So North Carolina, which was considered a swing state, obviously, went immediately for Trump, but all the down ballot races went blue. Is that right?
Exactly. Except for Chuck Edwards.
I don't know him, but nonetheless. And you say Mo Green. I thought Mo Green was rubbed out by the mob in Las Vegas. That's a bad joke for those of you who've seen The Godfather. But nonetheless, so that's an interesting outcome. And in fact, it seems to be mirrored around a lot of the country. The down ballot races went blue, but Harris lost. Is that what you're saying? And this is North Carolina. Okay, there you go. Thank you, ILENE. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And I hope you liked the Naked Hippie movie. Okay. Okay, thank you. That's an in-joke. We have 85 people with us, and Dennis Bernstein has joined us from, Dennis is a great radio host, nationally syndicated out of KPFA. His show is Flashpoints. Dennis, are you with us? Do I see you? Dennis Bernstein? Yes, no, maybe? Okay.
I'm here, I think.
Oh, yes, you are.
You got
Okay.
me. I don't know where I am.
Okay, so in 2 weeks, when we come back from Thanksgiving break, we're going to do a deep dive on the effect of Gaza and the Israel issue on this election. And Dennis has been leading the charge in many ways on that. And we do want to get into it. We were booked up today, but we will do it the first week of December. Dennis, go ahead, please. You had some other stuff.
Nonprofits now. We're talking about the nonprofits.
Oh, yes, the attack on nonprofits. Immediate. Didn't take them 10 seconds.
This is huge. I've had meetings with Andrea Carmen of the International Indian Treaty, whatever. Richard Montoya of Culture Clash, Nani Alejandres, all and a number of other folks who run, left of center or beyond crucial organizations. And I can tell you that there is an extraordinary amount of fear, and most see this as an absolute reality. And so they're dealing at the same time with the total shutdown, the attempt to shut down the funding of key nonprofits, along with the sweeps, because many of the people who are participating in these organizations are either vulnerable or have vulnerable families. And I believe I'm not up to speed on the actual place of where the legislation is. I understand, though, that they're going to vote on this again if they haven't already voted. Does anybody know if they have voted?
The Congress you're talking about?
Yeah, this is the cutting of funds for nonprofits based on you name it. So I don't know. They are going to vote. It was vetoed Friday, I believe, or last Tuesday or something. But there's going to be another vote coming up. And there's, I just sort of obviously there's a lot of other things going on, but there are a lot of people who are going to be hurt here, and it's very real. Does anybody have any sense of where this legislation is, or if it actually is going to make it through? And there are a lot of Democrats, by the way, who support it.
This is an attack on the nonprofit status of groups like ours. This call, this
Exactly.
is why I never endorse a candidate. We had Republicans on this show, and you know, people who speak are allowed to, but as a host, we don't endorse candidates. We're nonpartisan, and we are a nonprofit. So Dennis, this certainly would affect KPFK and well, the Pacifica Network,
Not to
and
mention, yeah.
you know, hugely. Someone had a hand. Who raised a hand? I saw it.
It was me, Tatanka.
Oh, Tatanka, yes, Tatanka
Yeah.
Brick, chair of
Dennis,
the. Go
Hi,
ahead.
Tatanka.
I heard I mean, I got an email from Amnesty International this morning talking about that vote
Yeah.
and urging people, and I went to click on it. I couldn't get through, but I was going to go back to it and find out how to vote on it. And, you know, one of them was introduced by Bernie Sanders, but I don't know any more about that. I don't know. I don't know if what the status of it, but Amnesty should know.
Well,
Yeah,
it doesn't
Bernie
sound
Sanders
good.
is high profile on this. Somebody else.
Brenda Davies, Brenda.
Hi there. So the House Committee on Rules, I think it's called, was voting at 4 o'clock today on this bill, which is HR 9495. And my understanding is that what they were voting on was an amendment to remove this piece from the bill that is about the designating nonprofits as terrorists. So here we are at 5:30 Eastern time. I don't know what the results are yet. I've been meaning to check on that.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for
I
that,
haven't
Brenda.
been able to get back to it, but yeah, the vote is that what they're voting to take the toxic part out? Is that what you said? I
Yep.
find that hard to believe. I want to see. You mean they're just going to take that out and vote, and they're going to have a nice bill?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Maybe they're going to hold off. This is going to when the changing of the guard is going to sort of I think take place first. But I did see there was I can't see this happening where they take out the I mean, that's why they made this bill, to get rid of us. They're not going to take it out.
Well, I did notice that
Yeah.
Trump has attacked and wants to have an investigation of the pollster in Iowa who said that Harris was ahead. And you know, I wouldn't discount that. You know, Iowa was once a more moderate state, and he wants her investigated, whatever that means. You know, because she came out with a result that apparently didn't square with the final count. I guess if a pollster says something that a candidate doesn't like, and the candidate wins the election, they can then go after the pollster. That seems to be what we're hearing from the president-elect. Is that accurate?
It's important to remember, as Chase Iron Eyes reminded everyone about 4 days ago on a Zoom they had, that it was Kristi Noem who first named him by name. His daughter Chakata at that time, I believe, was 13, and his wife as terrorists, and that preceded the whole thing. She was the one that named them as terrorists, and he firmly believes that's what will be the policy. And he predicted last week that they will go after a wide range of people.
Well, sure, a lot of people on this call will become designated hitters, so maybe enjoy it or hitties. You know, it's not a pretty situation that we're looking at. Dennis, is there more you wanted to jump in with?
No, I haven't done enough research. I just wanted to make sure it's on everybody's radar, because you know, these things are going to happen quickly when they happen.
Yes, they will.
Harvey, while I'm here, I have two questions.
Go ahead, Tatanka.
While I'm here. Okay,
and then
one is,
I want to talk to you about blue
if
stuff.
anybody has experienced this, I have a dear friend who's originally from Haiti and lives in the Willow Grove neighborhood of San Jose, which is in the heart of Silicon Valley. And she described a situation that I believe 6 weeks before the election, and she knows her neighbor. She's lived there 21 years. She's a professional woman, but has been a full-time mom. And MAGA is really strong there. And they tried to kind of recruit her husband, who kind of was friendly with everyone, and he had enough of it. But the son's school, a lot of the kids were MAGA kids of MAGA parents. And they managed, I think, by suing the principal to have the right to wear MAGA hats, because at one time somebody came in and wore, rights for women or something like that. And so groups of MAGA kids will go around and try to do their recruiting of other kids, and also do a certain amount of bullying, stuff like that. So she knows her neighborhood really well. She drives a pickup truck, and she goes up and down the street. She knows the construction people, for a wide range of area. About 6 weeks before the election, a whole group of white Southerners, she talked with them, some from Texas, some from Mississippi, MAGA people arrived and had construction jobs right near the school. And there's a whole series of things that led up to it. The first time she encountered them, she stopped her car to pick up her son. They didn't know that. She could see the fear in their eyes as her truck was approaching, and she's black. And like they were afraid she was going to run them over. And then they saw that she had her kid there. So anyway, they knew that she wasn't a threat to them. And so she would cruise up and down. She said in the days before the election, they were boring holes in mailboxes and putting, something in. What she saw a guy putting in with her thumb. She later took a photo of him that he didn't know that she'd taken. And all the way up to the day before the election, this was going on more and more and more all around the area. She thought it was some kind of explosive. And so the election comes, and the night of the election, they're all celebrating, loudly in the neighborhood that Trump won. And the next day they're all drunk and, they're real quiet. And the day after that, she's down at the train station and they're all headed home. She doesn't know if this was happening any other neighborhood. And she wanted me to ask if anybody's reported suspicious stuff like this in neighborhoods where they were preparing, as Trump was saying, I think his code word, the code word around January 7th was, everybody come out, it's going to be wild. She thinks because of him talking about this year-long fair that they're going to have in Iowa, and then every state fair, and celebrate the greatness of America and have 100 statues and et cetera, et cetera. He said, we want to have everybody come. It's going to be fireworks. It's going to be fireworks. So anyway, some kind of explosion, as migrants are put in trucks and rail cars and stuff.
Well, we'll keep our eyes open. My grandparents came here in 1900 to Boston. My parents and I were born in the United States, but who knows who they're going to come after? They do want to. Trump wants to get rid of the right to citizenship for people who are born here, and that will be an interesting dynamic to see, and who of us still qualifies as an American, and we'll see if those explosions go off Tatanka. Margot King, and then Steve. Margot, you haven't spoken. Good to see you.
Ruth Strauss had her hand up, but if you want.
Oh, I don't see Ruth Strauss.
I'm sorry. Yeah, she's there.
Yeah, we can call on Ruth now. And also Chuck Pinocchio's here for his announcement, so we can get him in.
Okay.
Harvey?
Yeah, go ahead, Margot, and then Ruth.
All I want to say is they voted the bill down.
What's that?
They voted HR 815 down.
What does that mean?
We're safe. They're not going to label nonprofits as terrorists.
Well, we'll see what happens in January. Thank you
Yeah.
for that, Margot. Thank you for the report. Got some good news today. Ruth Strauss, and then Chuck Panaccio, and then we'll go to Steve.
Yeah, Harvey, I think you're right. Stay tuned, because I'm sure that it will that bill will raise its ugly head again And the Washington Post, I believe that was they, had a list of 53 Democrats who were House Democrats who were voting for that bill to go through, meaning that you could label organizations like this as terrorist organizations. So I imagine it'll come back. I think if people, have some time, they should look at that article and find out if their representative was one of those people and call their representative and, read them the Riot Act if they were. And one last thing about the Washington Post, I called and canceled my subscription, of course, when Bezos did what he did. However, I heard this guy, Marty Barron, whom I never knew before, but he was chief editor in the past. And he said that, I guess 1 million people unsubscribed from the Washington Post. We should, and I will, go back and subscribe again. In fact, they're running an ad that it's like, now $3 a week or some very, reduced fee, or $3 a month, whatever. Anyway, go back and resubscribe or they won't have money to do the research that they need to do, and they certainly need it in the upcoming times. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ruth. And Chuck Panaccio, Chuck. Gotta unmute you here. Man, this is the most annoying part. There we go. Okay, go ahead.
There we go.
And I want to say hi to Julie Levine. Hi, Julie, from the up in the Sequoias. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, thanks ever so much. I'm just dropping the link for this event that we're announcing on Saturday from 12 to 2 Eastern, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific. It's sponsored by One Payer States, the organization for which I'm president. We work on the state-based universal healthcare campaign with Ro Khanna in the House, Ed Markey in the Senate. We also do Justice for All work, bringing together young people, diverse people, and really this Saturday event is really going to be very powerful because we're bringing together some of the most vulnerable communities, the communities that are really in the crosshairs of this incoming administration. So if I drop the link into the chat so folks can sign up for that, we'd love to have you with us. It's a 2-hour event, but you're going to hear from. Can I get just a quick share on can you just post the event here as well?
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
And if you'll do us a favor of posting at your event the link for our upcoming call in 2 weeks, that would be great. Or just, to link to our website, which is Election Protection 2024. And
go over there
actually, we're probably going to change it because it's up to we use grassrootsep.org.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And had a great conversation, by the way, with Joel Siegel the other night. He's sounding great. He's really sounding excellent. So,
well, Joel Siegel is a founder of this call. He's been having some tough times, but we really miss him, and hopefully he'll be back. Chuck, there you are. You're the One Payer States president. And boy,
so I'm going to flip through this very quickly. And just to highlight it, this is again 9 to 11 Pacific, 12 to Eastern time. This is a summit to bring a forum together to discuss the issues that are affecting communities of color, BIPOC, immigrants. You all might know Egberto Willies.
He's great. Egberto's been on with us.
Vicky Lowe is Indigenous leader up in Washington State. She runs their Universal Healthcare Commission. Awesome woman. Day Pope is a leader in the trans community, national leader. She's amazing. Ilyas Khan he's a Sunrise, Pittsburgh Sunrise president, and identifies as Latina. And his parents are from Middle East and South America. Nakshu, former student of mine, identifies as trans as well. Simon Hutton, our communications director, and Patricia Chadwick is a disability rights advocate. So we're touching a lot of these communities, and we just love to have folks in there. It'll be equally balanced between presentations and group breakout, so folks can be hands-on and have this conversation with people. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And Chuck, if you'll be with us through Mike, sounds like a few people there that we would want to have on our calls. So let's do a little interchange here while we can. All right, thank you so much for that. If no one else has a hand, Steve, you did, and then we can go to MYLA to talk to us about Blue Sky.
Okay, so Talking. All right, very good. Everybody's seen in the news that Columbus, Ohio had a bunch of Nazis on the street with their flags. It's a handful of guys that have been in this town for a long time. And Dr. Bob Tracus wrote a book about the history of hate in Ohio, which includes background on this group. And they just pop up their ugly heads every once in a while and disturb the peace and quiet of the neighborhood. Several individuals approached, one individual approached them, asked them to take their mask off, which they refused. All the local authorities came out and said, we don't approve of this. This is not what we are. And, you know, they bespoke it. So that's, we've got to keep in mind that all these, you know, these little appearances are blown up because of the drama that's going on within the country. And I really believe that people are going to have to choose sides, and we'll always do. I mean, every day people choose sides. It's a battle between the social and the antisocial forces, and the antisocial forces, I would say, have social dementia. So they can't function socially anymore. They're demented. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Harvey, you don't mute.
Go.
Still,
Sorry,
there you go.
Lori Grace just called Steve. If you can send her a link, she wants to come on. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, well, to hear about, I mean, I grew up in Columbus, and to think the idea of downtown in 1960, I'll never forget my one great experience at the State House. As I was 15 years old, and I saw John Kennedy speak, and now here we have Nazis, actual Nazis. These are people who take the idea that J.D. Vance called Trump America's Hitler. They think that's a good thing. That's a reason for voting for him. So there you go. Nonpartisan that we are, we will take that for what it's worth. We have 91 people with us, and MYLA RESON, do you want to give us one thing that happened in this election as an observer is that when Elon Musk bought Twitter, it was very clear that this was going to impact the election. And I think it did. We can't exactly put our fingers on it, but I think having Twitter in the hands of him actually was very significant. And so there has arisen a new service called Blue Sky. And can you tell us what it is, MYLA RESON, and also maybe a word about Substack?
Well, I don't know a heck of a lot about Substack.
Okay.
I'm not your expert or maven or Substack maven. However, I can tell you a little bit about Blue Sky that just kind of catapulted into the news. Blue Sky, it's my understanding, was actually created a while back, because I just joined a couple of days ago, and I'm finding posts from months ago, 6 months ago. So it's been around for quite a long time, but and it's not controlled by one individual. It's open source, and there are a lot of different computer coders who have created different sections of different silos, but they started it, I believe, as a response to Elon Musk taking over Twitter, what was once Twitter, now I call it Twitter X. And when the results of the election were announced, it seemed like there was an explosion in the growth of Blue Sky. And when I joined it, there were already over 22 million people who had joined, and they're leaving. A lot of them are closing their Twitter X accounts and opening Blue Sky accounts. And I found out, I think it was yesterday, that the person who used to be in charge of making sure that hateful toxic things were not allowed on Twitter has now actually got that position at Blue Sky to keep it relatively hate free, or at least, not allowing a lot of right-wing fascist hate speech on Blue Sky. But I'm finding that it's really quite lovely. And Harvey, I sent you and some other people an article that I found in Wired magazine about how to best use Blue Sky. But now that that article is no longer up, but I found another article, and it's very easy to join Blue Sky. Have you done so yet, Harvey?
No, I haven't. And
Well,
again,
only
I refer to it as Blueski, but go ahead.
it kind of reminds me, who is that Bansky? The artist who does those wonderful kind of murals, and you don't know who he is.
Oh yeah, yeah. And of
I-
course it's a great reminder of Larry Bensky, the great but nonetheless. So
right.
can you
That's
post in
Yeah,
what
what I'm going to do, Harvey, I'm sorry for cutting you off. I
yeah.
was just looking, I want to share. Okay, so I did find an article, and I'm going to share this, and I'll share the link. But I did find an article on ZDNet about how to use Blue Sky Social, everything you need to know. And basically it takes just a couple of minutes to sign up. You just go to I'm trying to now remember the exact URL. Oh, here it is. Okay, sorry. You probably can't see this now. It's bsky.app. So I'm going to put the link in the chat. And if you just go to this link, and let me say it one more time, just give me a second. I'm a little disorganized here.
All right, so it basically does what Twitter used to do before it became Elon Musk's weapon of choice.
And it's pretty fun. Oh, I don't think I did share it after all. I had intended to share it, and I
Okay,
didn't.
go ahead.
So anyway, here's how to use Blue Sky. You browse the website, but if you go to well, anyway, I better stop now. I'm sorry, I've got too much going on here. I'm gonna.
Okay. All right, so Margot King, did you want to say something about this, Margot? Margot raised her hand. This looks like a good alternative to Twitter. Go ahead, Margot. No, you're muted. Hold on.
Okay. I
Yeah.
put in the chat a really handy thing to know about. It's called Sky Follower Bridge. And you can use that to take all of your Facebook people on Facebook over to Blue Sky, rather than just hoping they'll join or hunting around and inviting them.
Well, I'll have to get one of my children or grandchildren to help me do this, but I will definitely try and do it. And we can have a deeper discussion in 2 weeks when people start to look into it and explore this alternative. I think it's important. Well, obviously it's important. So take a look. We'll rejoin in 2 weeks, and also Substack. I get a lot of alternative stuff now through Substack, but I haven't figured out what it is, and maybe somebody else knows. But this is important now to establish these alternatives. As I say, I think it was hugely significant when Elon Musk took over Twitter. I mean, it had just millions and millions of people, and it suddenly got flooded, and there we go, and it had a huge impact. So, okay, thank you for that, MYLA. We will follow up. You've Margot, you posted links in the chat that can get people there, and maybe in 2 weeks everybody can report on their experiences with Blueski or Blue Sky and Substack as well. Lori Grace, good to see you. Are you in Aloha Land? You in Hawaii there? There we go. Yes. Hi.
No, sure. But I'm assuming you've already talked about this, but I have been very involved in the setting up of two different groups following Steven Spoonamore's letters of
Yes, we
challenge.
want to get him on in 2 weeks. We're not going to meet next week, but 2 weeks from now, if you want to help get him on with Steven Spoonamore, that would be great.
I wanted to let you know that there's an effort right here, right now, to begin to contact the campaign because the amount of money that's needed to really pursue this is with the campaign, and because Democrats always have a tendency to shrivel when they're challenged. They don't fight, they shrivel, they become very intellectual and self-reflective. This is not what we need. If this has really happened, if the advances of Putin with Elon Musk have really happened, we need to have more proactive investigation.
Yes. Well, shrivel is a good word for the Democrats, unfortunately.
It is.
We've seen it before. Lori, great to have you with us. Vinny DiStefano, John Brakey, and then we're going to go to Alan Tasman.
Yeah, I was just going to hop in very quickly to say Substack is an excellent outlet with a variety of voices, including people like Seymour Hersh, John Mearsheimer, Ryan Grimm. It is well worth your time. I subscribe to a variety of them on it, so I'd encourage people to go there.
Well, if you could teach me how to do it, I'll come over and we can figure it out. I've heard it's pretty simple though. So,
So simple, even Sherman can do it.
Well, we live in Sherman Oaks, so that makes sense. John Brakey, go ahead, please. And then we're going to tell a quick report from Alan Tasman. And then we want to talk about what do the evangelicals want. And then we're going to have a visit on energy with Kevin Camps and find out about the new Secretary of Energy, who, of course, hates renewables. John Brakey, go ahead.
Hey, I finally was able to unmute myself here. I'm on Substack. I love it. You can do video. You can go back and correct errors. You're not locked in. It is just so easy to use. And yeah, I'm getting ready to quit Twitter after the campaign. Okay, and use that turf while I can. And then I'm going to go to Blue Sky and probably sign up the next few days when I have a chance. But it is Substack is wonderful. I urge everybody. It has I'm through the Tom Hartman Substack system because he's applied to it, and I guess a lot of us are banding together on his site.
All right.
Steve Spoonamore just sent out a document that I'm going to put in the chat, and he also is on Substack.
And Steve Spoonamore is our guy on the election, on the go-to guy. We have Steve Roosevelt is also with us. Steve, I haven't seen your hand. If you want to pipe up and say something about the election, I want to welcome Camilla Reese to us. Hi, Camilla. So we're going to, and Julie, it's great to see you, Julie Levine, up in the Sequoias. We have 84 people with us.
We also have Clint Curtis here. Clint Curtis is here.
Clint Curtis. Listen, we got to acknowledge Clint Curtis here. Clint Curtis, are you still in Florida, Clint? Clint was one of the great whistleblowers in the 2004 election. Actually came to Columbus, Ohio to testify. Clint, you want to say hi real quick?
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
Well, you'll have to come back when we're ready for you for greater detail on report about. Are you still in Florida?
I am in New York right now.
Oh, good choice. So, but anyway,
it's getting cold in New York.
Yeah, well, it'll warm. It's warming up thanks to our new Secretary of Energy. So, listen, you'll come back in a couple of weeks. We want to talk to you in greater depth. Okay.
Sounds good, sir.
Okay, my man. Great. Okay, so very quickly now, Alan Tasman is in Louisville, Kentucky, and we were talking. He's got a very, very interesting service that I want to introduce everybody to for about 10 minutes, and I think it's right up everybody's alley. And then we're going to jump over and start talking about what we expect from the new Secretary of Energy. Alan Tasman, are you unmuted, Alan?
I hope so. Can you guys
go ahead? Yes. So please explain to us what you do. I think a lot of people will be interested.
I'm going to be quick, and then I'm going to turn this over to another guy who's on the call named Ken Thompson. And Harvey and I go back to high school days, so that's a whole long story. But after the election results were in, I started thinking about the social discohesion that people who are like those of us on this call may be going through, people who are poor. Pick any population that Donald Trump doesn't like. And what Ken Thompson, who's also a psychiatrist, please don't hold that against us, is bringing to the US a really important neighborhood, community-based way of enhancing social cohesion, especially if it got started among disadvantaged groups. So instead of me going on, I'm going to turn this over to Ken Thompson. Ken's in Pittsburgh. He has been on the faculty at the University of Pittsburgh Medical School, and he did a stint as medical director of the U.S. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. So Ken, take it.
And Kim, now just to let people know, you basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are trying to pick up the pieces for people's psychological dysphagia after the election. Is that right?
Yes. So let me just say a word about what we've been up to. It's been going on for since COVID, but what we've been doing is working to bring a method of large group dialogic sort of support, large group support with you can have anywhere from 5 to 100 people in one of these sessions. And they're built around the concepts of Paulo Freire. Some of you guys may be familiar with Paulo Freire, who wrote the book Pedagogy of the Oppressed. It was developed in the favelas, in the shanty towns of Brazil. So among a group of populations that were really, really struggling and challenged, largely by climate change. Interestingly enough, these are folks who were displaced from the interior of Brazil by cutting down all the forests, and then they become deserts, and then the people have to move to the cities, and then they live in these cities, and then they're just beaten up, taken advantage of. They have no place can't call their own. This method developed to help those folks get through those very difficult times. And essentially what it is, it's as I said, it's a large group method that involves a facilitator who is of the community. So you try to have people who are representative of the place that that the groups are being run. They're trained to facilitate a 5-step process in which people in the group are welcomed and given an opportunity to share something positive that's gone on in their life. Then they're asked to identify challenge that an emotional challenge that they're having in their life. Then the group chooses one of the emotional challenges that have been nominated by a member of the group. They choose that to work on, and what they do is they then talk about where and how they've had a similar experience and what they've done to overcome it. And at the end of it, everybody expresses their appreciations for what they've heard, what they've learned from each other. So it has this wonderful capacity to bring people together. So it's an anti-loneliness, anti-isolation method. It gets people to talk and think about their emotions. Really difficult when we try to do this with Americans, I have to tell you. The Brazilians also spent a fair amount of time trying to make sure that people understand that their bodies and their minds are connected. So they do a lot of dance and music. Also an interesting challenge for Americans to get up and stand and dance like the Brazilians. So part of the challenges of bringing it to the United States have been to try to adapt it to the culture. And then people share their experiences and learn from each other about stuff that ordinarily they never talk about. And they certainly don't talk with strangers about. So this is done in a way that opens people up. It opens communities up. It creates what the Brazilians call solidarity care. And it's a method for large groups to deal with the kinds of challenges that we now face in the United States, from climate change to, oh my God, Trump is back again, to racial animosities and challenges and violence, to all the kind of stresses and strains that people experience on a day-to-day basis. And it's been proven to be very effective. The reason that you haven't heard about it is because nobody can make $1 million at this. This is actually a service that is very inexpensive. There's no way to make, tons and tons of cash. So nobody's there to promote it or to try to bring it into to get, pry the money out of anybody's pockets. So we are working here in the United States to figure out how to get it to people, train people, get facilitators who are able to do this, and to begin to shift the culture from a focus in mental health that's all about being private and hidden away to actually being, and not that that's a bad thing in itself, but that it in itself, it does cut people off from the very thing that sometimes is the most helpful to them, which is a sense of unity and connection with other people.
Well, these calls they sound very familiar on these calls, actually. So I think what we'll do is, if you guys are game, maybe in 3 weeks, we'll give it another week after Thanksgiving, at the end of the call. How long do these sessions usually last?
We can do it in an hour, but usually it's an hour and a half.
Do you ever do them by Zoom? Do you ever do them
Yes,
by
of course.
Zoom?
Of course. Yeah, you'd be great. This would be great.
All right, so
Harvey, let me say one thing.
Please.
This is not specifically about dealing with psychiatric problems that people are having. It's about problems of daily living and the adverse emotional impact of, think about somebody who's living in poverty, what adverse emotional impact that is. And people tend to isolate. So the whole goal is to develop social cohesion, which helps everybody. So we'd be glad to come back and talk about this more.
We'll run a session, Alan. We're going to do a session.
We'll run a session in a few weeks. We'll talk about it. It sounds very important. And, one of the huge issues in American society, of course, is social isolation, as you and I talked about, Alan. And this group, I think it would be a great one to talk about these groups. And, I don't know anything. I've never been in an AA session, but it sounds like my layman's impression, a little bit of what happens in AA. I don't know. The guy who founded AA, by the way, was on LSD. And I'm sure none of our participants have taken that before, but we will. Let's go. Somebody just told me, by the way, that Mike Tyson used to go into his fights on LSD. I think he emerged from this last one on LSD, but nonetheless, listen, Alan and Kenneth, this is great. Put your links in. Anybody want to talk to Alan and Kenneth and Mike Hirsch? We have someone who's going to come on and talk about us about the evangelicals. Do you have this person on by chance? Okay, there's Kenneth Thompson's link. John Steiner, did you want to say something? And then Ray Lutz. John Steiner, I think you had a hand. Yes? No? Did you leave us, John? Okay. Ray Lutz, do you want to jump in here?
Harvey, I just wanted to make sure that last presentation, which was great, is in the chat. That's all.
Yes, it is, and we'll do it. We'll take the second hour, maybe in 3 weeks, and let these guys run a session for us. And like I say, we'll all drop acid. We'll microdose in honor of Dorothy Fadman here before the session. But as I say, in the wake of this election, a lot of people are macrodosing, although not necessarily on psychedelics. Ray Lutz, go ahead, please, Ray.
Yeah, hi. Now,
What's that?
I just joined, so I'm not aware of what you guys were talking about, so I'm going to change the subject.
Well, let's make sure this one is dealt with, and Ray, I'll come right back to you.
Okay.
Does anyone else want to say anything to Alan and Kenneth Thompson here? So we will do this. We'll do this in 3 weeks. We'll take the second hour and we'll run a session. I'm very interested to see, what it's like, what you do. So we'll be prepared for that. And your links are in the chat. John Steiner asked you to put the link in. And Camilla, are you trying to speak? No? Oh, okay. Okay, I think Ray, I don't see Mike Hirsch. We were going to have a talk about the evangelicals. Am I missing something here? Mike Hirsch?
Dorothy, is that you?
No, I don't. Dorothy, who is it? Dorothy, that you wanted to speak?
No.
No? Okay. Okay, go ahead, Ray, let's please. Ray's going to take us back, I'm sure, to election stuff, and then we're going to be joined by Kevin Camps to talk about the upcoming challenges with the new Secretary of Energy and so forth. And the good news is, by the way, that the Chinese have just opened the world's largest offshore solar photovoltaics facility. It's gargantuan. It looks really interesting, and I'm sure our new Secretary of Energy is not going to be interested. Go ahead, Ray Lutz, please.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, we're
Speak
really
up a little, Ray, where you're kind of
Oh.
low.
okay. So I thought I had this thing here set up. Let me just double check the audio device, speaker, microphone. Yeah, let me change it to this one. Okay. So that should be better. Do you hear me better now?
Absolutely, that's great.
Okay, yeah, I had it on the wrong. I got a microphone here, so anyway, we are looking at the 2024 presidential election. Okay, so we're all devastated at this result, but basically, we're seeing some anomalies. I gave you the link to the proposed letter to the Department of Justice. It's my opinion that the Department of Justice should execute a independent review of this election. It's something that they've done before in other cases, and they have departments on election, fraud and everything else. So it is, and the elections, when you challenge them, they go through the court. So it's the logical place. If Kamala Harris is not going to, challenge it herself, and she's not going to, then we need someone that will. And I'm disappointed that the Democrats have not done their due diligence on this election to find out if it was legitimate. What we're seeing, though, is a big, what they're calling drop off between, and it should actually be called a drop up, I guess. But if you look at any election of a president and then the next next race down, say the Senate race, you're going to have some drop off between how many people vote at the top and the next one down. Not everybody votes all the way down the ballot. Some only vote for the top ticket, but it's usually very close. And in fact, usually on the Republican side, they're very good at voting all the way down. They vote all Republicans all the way down without really thinking. And Democrats a lot of times are going to vote the entire ballot, but maybe not so much. So you expect there to be the top of the ticket and then a little bit of a drop off. If you look in say, California, there was the top of the ticket and a small drop off of maybe 6,000 votes. Sometimes Trump got fewer votes than the next one down in the non-swing states because people kind of didn't like Trump in the non-swing states. But if you go over to the swing states like Nevada was a blue state in 2016, 2020, and now it was red. And the drop off between Kamala Harris and the next one down, the senator who won, was only 4,000 votes. And in the Republican side, the drop off was kind of a drop up, 75,000 votes. So somehow the Republican side got an additional 75,000 votes added to their side. And so this is what's concerning us. You wonder, how did this happen? Some people have said these are called bullet ballots. They really don't know yet if it's only a one vote ballot just for Trump and nothing else. But it certainly is a vote for Trump and at least not the next one down. Then how do those get in there? Was it because of the, Joe Rogan interview? And you say, well, no, that would affect everything across the board, whether it's swing state or non-swing state. And so that doesn't make any sense. So that's not it. Would it be that they just added them in, like just brought them in and put them in there. Well, then we could look to see what the total voters are that voted versus how many ballots are processed. So we could do that fairly quickly. Was it that they just reported more, like you were just going to come up with these, or they did hack these machines before the election? They stole them. They knew what was in them. They maybe just changed the numbers in the machine and added them in. So there's various ways it could have happened. And we're seeing this big difference between the swing states and non-swing states. Why is that important? Well, if you were a hacker, you would not say, I'm just going to go to every state and affect it. I'm going to go to the states that I can make a difference, the swing states, and you'd only hack those. Same with the ground game. It could be just a really, really good ground game that they went out and did the ground game and they got people to vote and they said, and it's the America PAC, so they don't care about the rest of the Republicans. They said, just vote for Trump. They wouldn't be handing out the flyer with all the Republicans all the way down, so those people didn't. So there may be explanations for it, but it still warrants a review. So that's where we are. I put in the proposed DOJ letter, and I'll give you also a link to a document which lists what kind of things to do with fast consistency checks for this election, so that we can get maybe some volunteers trying to also look and get some data and do some sleuthing around to see if we can't find out what it is, get ourselves set up so that we can be the recipient of whistleblower information. And sometimes that happens if they just know that you're looking into it. So I put that in there also. And so that's pretty much what I have, if there's any questions.
Well, you made an interesting comment. There should be, I'm treading on deep waters here, but there's a mixed allegory. There should be a national review.
Yeah.
Mechanism of all elections.
Especially ones like this, that as critical as this is, and the fact that we had so much consternation in the last election, the fact that this guy's coming up again with a history of lying and cheating. In fact, he cheats with pride. It's something where, it's like the Kobayashi Maru test, if you cheat, and Captain Kirk got praised for that. He cheated the system. So it's the same kind of thing. He says, well, look, I'm a cheater, but I'm your cheater. I'm going to cheat. All the rest of the countries are cheating, and I'm going to cheat for America. So a lot of people look at it as a good thing. But still, the Department of Justice, unfortunately, it's Merrick Garland. We have a really weak DOJ.
Oh God, is he weak?
He is a very nice person. I mean, he gives nice, heartfelt speeches and stuff, and I've listened to him. But that's not what it takes to do something like this. We need somebody who's kind of the street smart attorney who's out, kind of a Mike Aguirre. I don't know if you know him, but he's the kind of person who is kind of the asshole. You kind of want that asshole attorney.
Okay, we got that language. I think that one's over the line.
Oh, that's over the top. Okay.
Yeah. But let's say this, we've been having disputed elections, seriously disputed elections in this country for 24 years.
Yeah.
This is since 2000, every election has been disputed seriously. There needs to be some kind of nationally recognized, if not part of the government, review board where it's not just people who are automatically considered crazies. And it's been the Democrats who've been worse. But what can I tell you? That's a very good point, Ray. Very well taken. And your work, of course, on elections has been phenomenal. We're joined by Kevin Kantz. We're going to get to energy in a couple minutes, Kevin. Stay with us, Ray. You got some questions here. Paul Newman and then Tatanka. Paul, you still haven't put up a picture of Eleanor, so please get on.
I'll get one.
Okay, go ahead.
But anyway, Ray, I had a question. I've been trying to find out. They're saying things like that Starlink had a part because Pennsylvania was linked to Starlink with their election. Now, I heard, what's his name, say that there is no outside link into the, to say Pennsylvania's voting counts. What do you know about that? Do you know about this relationship with Starlink and the swing states?
Okay, well, I do know that let me just give you two pieces of information. Number one, in the Tina Peters case, sentenced to 9 years, she broke in and her people stole the software.
Right.
They looked into it and they found an additional piece of software that was not supposed to be on the voting system, but is distributed normally by Dominion with every distribution, and it's called the SSMS, or the Microsoft SQL Server Management Suite. Okay, so this is a piece of software that you can dig into any database and alter it at will. And it's like it's the very, very strong tool to work with databases. And they probably put it there in case there's a problem, you need to look into it. You can look into it with this tool. But that removes the restriction from people working on, just modifying the database without it being tracked and logged by the system. This was also found in the Stephanie Lambert case in Michigan, the Antrim County one. It's still in process. It's going to be, I guess, December 2nd, they're going to have another hearing. So they did steal the stuff. They demonstrated how the database itself could be hacked. They also brought up the fact of is there a way to wirelessly communicate with these systems so that they can be controlled from remote locations and then modify the result? Either using that piece of software or using another one to manipulate the database, because once you get in, you could do it. They say, and if you talk to people who are the insiders who want to promote the fact that everything's secure, they'll say, no, there's no way to do that because it's all air gapped and it's absolutely impossible to do it. Well, that's just wrong. All of these systems are just like this central tabulator. It's just a computer. They have the Wi-Fi integrated onto it. It's like it's always there. And so it'd be really simple. Or if you did have a little modem for Starlink that you would plug in, someone would plug it in if they're an insider that's compromised, blackmailed for this, that, and the other thing, and so they're forced to do it. There's so many scenarios you can think of. They plug it in, and then maybe Starlink. There's no way you can prove that it didn't happen.
Right now, the reason why is there are routers the size of thumb drives.
Yeah,
and they could just pop it in a USB port and bingo, you're linked to Starlink.
And if you've seen the videos of people who say, okay, here's how people will take over your computer and be able to control it from a second place. They plug in a thumb drive. It takes about 5 seconds. They unplug it. It's over. Everything is installed, and now they can control your machine, and they've got it controlled. So it is certainly, they have the motive, they have the opportunity, they have the expertise, they certainly have the means to do this. And they have the history of doing this type of thing. So it's definitely all of the things there that warrant a real investigation into this to put everybody's mind at ease. We should not just have to sit down and say, okay, well, they said they won, and so therefore we're just going to live with that. That's stupid.
This is so important, and it just blows me away how people are so passive about it, because once Trump declares martial law, it's game over. That he'll have the country. Yeah. He'll find a reason to do it too. So I mean, that's why it's so important to count those votes.
No, we need to, especially in this case.
Well, you're going to be a long time waiting for the Democrats to do something significant.
Well, I'm not relying upon the Democrats. I mean, unfortunately, it's us citizens that have to do it. And why is it the fact that I'm always in the, here, the person that's saying I'm doing this, but I'm here doing it again, like I did with the nuclear reactors. People are just sitting there doing, okay, well, I'm telling you, you're in danger when you live here. And why is no one else doing this? So they should be doing it. I think the Department of Justice, they have departments within the Department of Justice that have been historically doing this type of thing. They did the Voting Rights Act oversight, the foreign election interference of 2016. They did the 2020 investigations. Of course, they were prompted by the lawsuits. They have federal monitors in polling places. They have an election cybersecurity collaboration started in 2018 and an election threats task force. So Department of Justice has already like an election threats task force. This is up their alley. And so it makes sense to me. I know sometimes I think of crazy things, but it makes sense to me that the Department of Justice should go out and see if this was a just election.
Yeah.
One more thing. Trump has tried to overthrow the last election. That right there is enough for me to not trust this election.
Exactly.
But the question is, where do we get the definitive body that will give us an irrefutable report on whether or not the election was valid? Who do we go to?
The courts.
No, it all comes
How
back to the
about
public.
Spock? How about Spock?
We have Peter B. Collins with us as well.
Oh, yeah,
here.
Peter B. Sorry, Ray, did you want to finish something else?
Starfleet Command, I think, would be able to help us there.
We got Peter B. Collins, who's a really great radio guy with us. Peter, good to see you again. Tatanka, Eileen, and then we're going to jump into energy with Kevin Camps. Go ahead.
Ray, thank you so much for this, because as we were listening to everything that was being done on election protection to secure a way of certifying a fair election, the thought occurred to me months ago that the one place it's securing the what do you call it when evidence goes from one place to another?
Your chain of
command.
The chain of custody.
Yeah,
so is anybody linked up? One thing that I thought that would be relatively easy to do, if you can hack it, there's any number of ways, is and to not draw so much attention in it, is to take off a number of Democratic votes and to add a number of Republican votes. So in the very quick analysis, the final vote count looks okay.
Yeah.
My hackles went up when I was on CNN or MSNBC, and the Democratic Harris woman who was Spanish speaking was there, and the Republican was there, and they just gotten this huge number of ballots in Georgia. And they said, well, we've got them. Now it goes to the committee. Now, that committee, we know, has no Brad Raffensperger on it. Is there a way of finding out? I mean, it should not be legal to have only one party counting the ballots, right? I mean, there's got to be some way of ensuring that that doesn't happen, even though, you know, they deferred to the states and they voted and they got in and they spent 4 years packing those election counting procedures, just like they packed boards of education and, you know, to go after the educational process. So is there a way of identifying in Georgia, let's just take Georgia, those precincts that had MAGA only people counting the ballots, and they may have had a relatively even outcome of the total ballot by taking off Dems and adding Republicans. Is there any way of counting that in swing states?
Okay, so this is actually something I've worked on for many years because and we've made progress. Now Georgia is a good case to take because 2020 was the first election when they had machines that had a paper trail at all. So prior to that, they had no paper trail. They had just electronic memory sticks. And then you would bring those in and you'd get a call that says, I need 11,780. And the guy would just say, okay, yeah, actually, we just found them. No problem. You know, you're in business. And so it's probably been cheated on for years and years. And then finally, they kind of couldn't. Or it makes it harder because now we have that paper trail, and to get to it though, to get to the paper is difficult. And that's why we use ballot images, which are now being produced, and they're actually publishing them to their website this year, although not in the form that we'd like. We still have to try to push on getting a little bit better. But what we have is a thing called Audit Engine that goes through every single ballot image and adds it up. Now, that doesn't, even if we do that, that does not cover a lot of the different scenarios of what we're looking at here, which is bring in a stack of paper that's all voted for Donald Trump, and the stack of ballots, we just add it to the mix and maybe just throw away some other ones. And if you're an insider, so much is based on trust of the election officials. In Mesa County, Colorado, their report was that, okay, well, the Wi-Fi could be used, and there is no guarantee that it is air gapped properly. Yeah, that's the responsibility of the election official. And guess what? She's a MAGA supporter who doesn't want to do, they infiltrated a lot of these election offices with partisan actors who would do whatever it takes, with their MAGA hat on. And so it is imperative. But what it comes down to, unfortunately, is there is no department in the government that we can trust, unfortunately, with this. We actually have to do it and get enough visibility into these elections where we can kind of prove it or not. But the trouble is right now, I'd love to do ballot image audits. They take time and effort and so forth, and you have to have the ballot images. We need something super fast right now so that we can convince people that there's something wrong with this election. Stop saying don't look into it. Stop saying that we're automatically an election denier just because we want to find out what the facts are. And let us verify what happened. Trust and verify. We need to verify what happened.
So I think they looked at all the elections they've stolen, especially since 2000, 2004. They looked, the Republicans are very good working with the media. They looked at the media wanting an answer tonight, if not tonight, tomorrow morning. And the same way Trump outran the Department of Justice in order to run, he outran the law with all the lawsuits. The same thing, declare it that night. Right after the Harris person said, we'll meet again tomorrow, right? Then they come in and they announce the victory. And then they announce that it's a mandate. It was very, very close in so many swing states. So all they do is you find those precincts in Georgia and North Carolina and Arizona, other places, where only the Republicans are in the room, whether they're, however they manipulate it, whether it's with paper or it's electronically. And then you simply outrun the system and you make sure it will take so long to recount that there'll be violence if you now demand, after all this time, and I've appointed my cabinet and blah, 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 he's acting like he's already president. And I think that was part of the plan. We will simply outrun the legal process.
Yeah, and you could argue too that all of the stuff that happened of overdoing it with election denial and so forth, and then maybe putting stories in about if you're an election denier, you shouldn't be trusted, and so now the Democrats are at a point where they almost can't even talk about it. The press doesn't.
They weren't going to talk about it at all. We've seen 24 years of the same stuff. They just don't. They're just not going to do it. We got Kevin Camps waiting for us. Ray, this is really, really important stuff.
Just the final statement. When I saw the commentator, it was either MSN or MSNBC or CNN, said, look, here's the Democrat and the Republican. This is a fair election. At the same time, all the image I saw when it goes to the committee is that they're on the phone with Donald Trump. Oh, we've rigged North Carolina. We'll do that first, then we'll do Georgia. And who would know? Who would know?
Well, that's the point. And we need a national, we've been building from the bottom up here for 24 years. And what do we got? We still have uncertainty. At this point in time, there should be no uncertainty about the outcome of this election. We shouldn't be having this discussion, for God's sakes. And here we are. ILENE, MYLA, John Brakey, and then we'll go to Kevin Camps. Go ahead, ILENE.
Wondering why nobody brought up Peter Thiel, who is the architect of Cambridge Analytica, which of course manipulated Brexit. And he was the partner of Elon Musk, who started PayPal. He has publicly said that the reason for the decline of democracy, which is a bad thing, parenthetically, he said, is that women are voting. So if we eliminate women's votes, so that's who Peter Thiel is, but he's also a tech genius and very conversant with the algorithm that would change the whole scenario.
So they want to repeal the 19th Amendment. Okay. But, de facto. Thank you, Eileen. MYLA and then John Brakey, and we'll go to Kevin Camps and talk about energy.
I really want to thank you, Ray, for pointing out and helping us to understand that they could have been linked up to the internet, because I keep seeing a lot of people saying there was no way that that could have happened. So it's good to know that. And I want to thank Lori Grace for injecting, and you, Ray Lutz, for injecting a certain sense of urgency. I'm really kind of disappointed that we're not coming back next Monday, because I don't think there's a lot of time to waste. And I'm wondering, in terms of how much time we have, if it's even possible to catapult this information into the public conversation, and to unfortunately, it seems like corporate Democrats are actually trying to prevent us from really scrutinizing this in a very public way. So I just like your opinion, Ray, in terms of time frame. How much time do you think we have to?
Well, I will say this: time is of the essence. We need to get it done fast, and we only have maybe on the order of days or a week or two at the most before we have to really take action.
Right.
When you can work it back from January 6th, whenever the date's going to be this year, that's whenever the Senate goes into session and confirms the election. Of course, that is the drop dead date when everything has to be done. Prior to that, there's a December date when people are supposed to come from the states with their electors and so forth, and that's supposed to be done then, and then working it back. Like in California, it's 29 days after the election, the end of November. Some of them have confirmed before that, but it's very, very soon, and we're mid-November now, so we have only a couple of weeks.
John Brakey, go ahead, and then
I
we're going to
just
go to
want
Kevin
to
Camps.
say that what Ray, everything he said is right on. Okay, Arizona, I would say that first our counties certify, and you have 5 days to challenge, and then it goes to the state level, and you have 5 days to challenge after they certify. Okay, and so that's kind of, I think, works in a lot of places, because any county that runs their own election will have to do a canvass report, get it all done, and get it out. And that's how it's going to work. And I would say this is that, I am finishing a report. I'll be putting a video up pretty quick that goes into what states to look into. And I'll say this: the states that have modems is Florida, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Rhode Island, Wisconsin, and the District of Columbia that I've identified. And there's probably more. Okay.
Right.
Arizona banned them a long time ago. Because of the work that we were doing in Arizona. So, like I said, I sued Pima County in 16 times, about 8 each, and they finally shaped up.
Well, why is it here? We're at the state again, ragtag, the seat of the pants, no help from either party, no government agency, no official, check and balance on the legitimacy of a national election. We still have 80 people with us. This call has the longest attention span in America, but here we are again. It's deja vu all over again. This could be Florida 2000, and where are we going? It's mind-boggling to me. So Ray and John and so many others who are doing this work, we're still seat of the pants here. It's just a mind-boggling. Ray, did you want to say something else? And we're going to
No, actually, just thank you very much. I thought you were saying goodbye. Okay, thanks everybody.
Well, thank you, and we will re-adjourn on the week, 2 weeks from today, and bomb threats at polling locations, stripping the voter rolls, which Greg Pass has been talking about for 24 years, and it seems like we had the most egregious situation in 24 years. Like nothing has gotten better. And we're going to go that way, unfortunately, on energy. So we have Kevin Camps with us. We're just getting word of a new Secretary of Energy who thinks that solar is worthless. We have Elon Musk somewhere floating around who made a few $100 billion on solar panels. But Kevin, where do we stand now with the new Secretary of Energy, and what are we anticipating with the Trump administration in terms of, Donald Trump actually made a very negative comment about nuclear on Joe Rogan, saying he's a little bit dangerous and expensive, and more than Joe Biden has said in 4 years against nuclear power. But then we get a whiff of this new Secretary of Energy. I mean,
yeah, thanks for having me.
What do you think, Kevin Camps?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yes, I mean, Trump has said some things. One of the things that caught my attention was he said he was going to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. Trump said something on Monday and reverses himself 10 minutes later, so we'll see what happens. But there are $380 billion in nuclear power subsidies authorized by Biden's Inflation Reduction. So if Trump were to repeal that, that would be good news on the nuclear power fight. Unfortunately, it would also repeal the renewable energy subsidy, $360 million worth. And then, at least a little lip service from Trump about the danger of large-scale nuclear, although he seems to believe that small modular reactors, so-called, are somehow inherently safe. And I think on, his concerns about nuclear, I think he'll get his last administration. It's the last person in the room who talks to him. And then he goes out to the cameras and spews whatever is on his mind at that moment. So we'll see what happens with all this. Biden has been pro-nuclear for many decades. I mean, his power base is Wilmington, Delaware, to the Salem Hope Creek nuclear power plant with 3 reactors, only 15 miles away. And by some measures, if Salem Hope Creek were to have a single reactor down, Wilmington would be wiped out. So it's just very ironic what's happened. But this new energy secretary nominee named Chris Wright is a fracking executive. He's another Fox News pundit. So, the cabinet of Fox News pundits that Trump is nominating. And, a part of it that kind of irks me, I guess you could say, is right now the excuse for reviving closed Palisades in Michigan, 3 Mile Island Unit 1 in Pennsylvania, Duane Arnold in Illinois, and also building a large number supposedly called new build small modular reactors.
Kevin,
Latest
you're kind of dropping.
the latest
Kevin, you're kind of
excuse.
dropping out a little bit.
He's okay. Are you in a
Nothing
hotel?
I can do about it. I have a bad internet connection. So
you might have to turn off your
the
video.
latest.
Oh, turn off your video. Turn off your
Okay,
video.
I can do that.
There we go. Okay. How's
There you
that?
go. The latest excuse to build new reactors to resurrect dead ones is AI and data centers. Last
God.
week it was jobs. The week before that it was electrifying the auto fleet of electric vehicles. The week before that it was climate mitigation. So they have all these excuses. They're running around like chickens with their head cut off. Environmental protection is out the window. Safety is out the window. Health is out the window. It's just all these excuses. Like, we have to throw everything out the window because we have to do nuclear and renewables can't do it. So it's madness. It's madness. And we've seen nuclear boom and bust cycles. We're in the biggest nuclear boom cycle I've ever experienced in 33 years of anti-nuclear activism. I guess we'll see what happens.
Well, it's interesting. First of all, I want to point out the small detail that there are 6 atomic reactors in Ukraine in a war zone and 2 atomic reactors in Russia in a war zone. And any single errant shell in either one of these war zones, hitting any of those, God forbid, reactors, and Europe and Eurasia are completely irradiated again. And I also want to point out, Kevin, and you know this very well, as do Paul and the rest of us in California, that the most destructive politician against the transition to solar power in America has been Gavin Newsom, who signed a deal in 2018 to convert phase out the two reactors at Diablo Canyon, and has presided over a utility regulation assault on the biggest solar industry in the world, really, which is except for China, in California, and cost 17,000 jobs off the top, and single-handedly, utterly wrecked the rooftop solar industry in California. Again, it's Gavin Newsom. And now this guy has the temerity to issue an executive order that he's going to study why electric rates in California are so high, when he has approved a $12 billion handout, $12 billion to keep Diablo Canyon operating. Do you want to comment on that, Kevin?
Yeah, I think Gavin Newsom has some competition from Michigan with Governor Whitmer and former Governor Jennifer Granholm, now Energy Secretary, who is the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain in both California and Michigan. At Palisades, more than $8 billion to restart the old reactor, another $7.5 billion to build 2 new small modular reactors on the site. A total of more than $16 billion requested at Palisades by a single company, Holtec International. So the Democrats have a lot of explaining to do on all this giveaway. They've handed the keys to the Treasury at the federal level and at the state levels to the nuclear power industry. It's a very sudden development just in the last couple years. And it's inexplicable. And these are very dangerous reactors. So we're going to see what's going to happen. I mean, Palisades, we expect the worst could happen. My phrase is, I hope it doesn't, but I fear it will. So that's my fear. It's a very dangerous reactor, and they're going to fire it up with terribly degraded steam generator tubes and a dozen other pathways to meltdown.
And here's the other question, Kevin. The flip side is with solar, Elon Musk has made a ton of money on solar panels, and he certainly knows the technology, and he certainly stands to make a good deal of money more if he pushes solar. And yet you have this guy coming in. I didn't realize he was another Fox News guy. The classic moment in Fox News history on energy was there was a discussion of Germany, when Germany under Angela Merkel was phasing out their nuclear plants and going heavily to solar. There was a guy on Fox News, maybe it was this guy, I don't know, who said there was, he literally said this. He said that it was a lot easier for Germany to go solar than from the United States because Germany has so much sunlight, more sunlight than the United States. He said that. I don't know if it was this guy, but here we are. We have a Secretary of Energy allegedly coming in, and he's a gas guy. At least he's not a coal guy at this point, but who knows? And pro fracking, and hates solar, which is the hope of the universe as far as I can tell. And I did mention in the flyer, China has just opened the world's largest offshore floating solar facility. Now, one thing people probably know on this call is that solar panels work better when they're cool. You don't want to superheat solar panels. And so having them float in the ocean or on a lake or on an aqueduct is a great idea because A, it cuts down evaporation, which you may want to do in freshwater water bodies, and B, it cools them, and they're more efficient when they're cooled. So this guy coming in an era where renewables should be just blowing through the roof, and we have a governor in California who's been destroying the solar industry. You know, it's just another reason to tear our hair out. MYLA, and then Kevin, we'll go back to you. Anybody else want to chime in on this? We're almost out of time, so let's do it. MYLA?
Thank you. Kevin, you know, you said that Joe Biden has always been in favor of nuclear power, and I didn't know whether you knew about it, but back in 2007, when a lot of nuclear facilities were seeking relicensing and extensions of their licenses because they were running out of time. Joe Biden was seeking the presidential nomination to be the Democratic nominee for president. He was a perennial candidate prior to actually getting that nomination. But back in 2007, he was interviewed by a newspaper in New Hampshire called the Sentinel Source. And there's a YouTube video that focuses on Biden being asked about nuclear power. And he was asked by the managing editor of the Sentinel Source, Paul Miller, this question. Miller said, "I'm just wondering what kind of confidence you have in the regulatory capacity of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to ensure the safety of the people." And Biden said, "None." That he had no confidence. He said none. And by the way, I'm more exposed than any of you. Where I live, there are more nuclear power plants in a 50-mile radius than any other place. And he went on. So I'm going to put the link in the chat to that YouTube video. So Kevin, it seems that at some point, at least, he might have been pro-nuclear, but he certainly didn't seem to have confidence in the NRC to ensure the safety of the people. So
Kevin, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah. Where did that Joe Biden go? I wish he had been in the White House for 8 years as vice president and 4 years as president. I mean, I would quote Deep Throat, who said, "Follow the money." The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 is Biden's greatest achievement in office, supposedly. $380+ billion in nuclear power subsidies, no reforms at NRC except for the recent AGREE Act, which told NRC to downplay safety and care more about the profit margin of the nuclear power industry. That was Biden's signature on the AGREE Act. So, you know, Obama was asked about the NRC, said it's a moribund agency during the same election cycle. The only thing that the Democrats like Obama have done for us lately on nuclear is blocked the Yucca Mountain dump. And I'm thankful for that. But believe you me, there's a little bit more to do to protect the American people against the dangers of nuclear power.
Well, weirdly enough, you know, Ronald Reagan came in with guns blazing and absolutely was devastating to the nuclear industry. I mean, the nuclear industry really, you know, stuck its legs up in the air under Ronald Reagan. And George W. Bush tried to do a massive fund to fund new nukes, and they didn't do it. I mean, but then Obama came in and gave $8.5 billion to build Vogtle in Georgia, which is a complete catastrophe. And you know, who knows? With Trump did make a negative comment about nukes. Now, whether somebody's going to go in there and slip him a few bucks and get that reversed, we don't know. But we certainly haven't. The industry has had three no greater friends than the Democratic governor of California, Gavin Newsom, the Democratic governor of Michigan, and the Biden plan. So who knows here, Kevin? I mean, you know, we're nonpartisan, and we don't know. This guy obviously doesn't. This guy's a Fox guy. He obviously doesn't know anything he's talking about. And if I would guess that Elon Musk would be more pro-solar than pro-nuclear. What do you think?
Oh, I have no idea. I can't get over his interview with Stephen Colbert on The Daily Show, where he said, we need to colonize Mars, but first we have to explode 10,000 hydrogen bombs there to make an atmosphere. So I'm a little leery of anything Elon Musk has to say, I have to say.
Yeah. All right, you guys. So listen,
Maybe he'll move up there. I would welcome Elon Musk to move to Mars and get that whole thing going. I would welcome that.
yeah, well, he could have the first Tesla franchise on Mars. That would be great. All right, listen, you guys. Thank you, Kevin. Put your connections in the chat, please. And we really appreciate that. And just remember, I mean, I'm terrified. You got 6 reactors at Zaporizhzhia in Ukraine. You got 2 more in Kursk. Is that what Kursk in Russia?
Yes,
Kursk in a war zone. 8 reactors in a war zone right now. God help us. We still got 64 people with us. We were up to 90 today. We are off next week for Thanksgiving and to recuperate. And we will be back in 2 weeks. This was a fabulous session as always. Does anyone want to pipe in before we move out? We could have had a lot more discussion on the ballots and what really happened in this election. It's just shocking to me, you know, having been, this is 20 years with this issue, and we still don't have a definitive answer. There is no organization in this government or even as a nonprofit in the United States of America where we can go and get a definitive answer on whether or not this was a fair election. There's just no one. The Brennan Center is there, but you know, there's no like definitive group that can come out with the expertise. And on this call, we have had more expertise than anywhere else in the country between John Brakey and Ray Letts and you know, Steve and Steve Rosenfeld was with us briefly, and Lori Grace. Nobody knows more about election protection than the people on these calls. And yet we still have no definitive resource that we can go to and tell the American public, here is the definitive answer. Yes, this was a fair election, or no, it wasn't a fair election. Well, how is that? How do you have a democracy where you cannot guarantee that we had a fair election? It's not that complicated.
And that's the fight. That is the fight right there. You've nailed it. Okay. We have the expertise. We have the software. All we need is 2 records, the ballot image, the cast vote record. You can get the EL reports online. You can match up and you got it solved. And we can heal.
Where is the organization that will deliver the credible report based on that? You know, we don't have it. How can we not have it? For God's sakes,
recruit candidates, show them how simple, how complicated the problems are, but let them know the solutions are simple.
Hey, John, you're absolutely right. And I think what we need is a no-fault audit system where we automatically, randomly, thoroughly audit and make it so anybody who gets caught screwing with our elections goes to jail for so long that they come out and they've missed 10 elections.
Well, and you know what?
And it needs to be, wait, Sluggo, it needs to be hardwired into the legal system, and it needs to be done automatically. So we don't have to wait for a Hillary Clinton or a Al Gore or John Kerry or anybody else. We all have standing to demand accurate elections. This idea that only the candidate has standing is a ridiculous notion that puts democracy, well, we see what's happening. It puts democracy on the chopping block. So
Absolutely.
I think that maybe what we should do is shift our gears a little bit to demanding, and it would only take maybe getting it through a couple of states, a couple of swing states. Maybe we could get it through Michigan. Maybe we could get it through Pennsylvania. And then these things would kick in automatically in every election from dog catcher all the way up to the commander in chief. And we won't have these variables. We won't have to have John Brakey and Ray Lutz wondering, when's the DOG going to act? It'll kick in automatically. And I think that's what we need, no fault elections.
Well, we have John Brakey and Ray Lutz, and here we are on our calls, which are wonderful. But, you know, we have no legal standing. David Sonneborn, and then MYLA, and then anybody else want to raise their hand? We're going to sign out.
Can I just quickly say that I transcribed that 2007 interview with Joe Biden, and I put my email in the chat. If anybody wants that transcript, just shoot me an email, and that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, MYLA. David, and then anybody else? Last call. Go ahead, David.
Yes, I got on about an hour and a half late. I wanted to ask first, did Mimi German get on today?
She did not. She was out walking in the wilderness.
Well, the reason I ask is some good news. The Friends Committee on National Legislation, which is the group she was going to, was just announced they won the United States Peace Award this year.
Oh, good. Fantastic. Congratulations. And everybody, you all won the award. Still 57 people. That seems even a magic number for us after 2 hours. We're going to adjourn for Thanksgiving. I will not be eating a turkey. You know, every time I see a turkey in the wilderness, they thank me. You guys, whatever you're going to eat, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thanks the indigenous. And we will be back in 2 weeks. This is a wonderful, wonderful group. Thank you, JOHN Brakey. Thank you, Camilla, for being with us. ILENE, for your report from North Carolina. Paul Newman, your solar panels are still working. And we are going to go over now. Steve Caruso, thanks for engineering. And great to see everybody. Sylvia Norman, great to see you. Lori Grace, aloha. Dorothy Fadiman, so great to have you with us. Dorothy, you did such great work on this, and we'll be back. And, you know, here we are 24 years later. Same deja vu all over again, you know. It's truly amazing. Well, I guess the next 4 years, we're just going to have to build an institution that will guarantee that our elections are fair. That's all we can do. We have to build, we know all the inputs now. Greg brought up the issue of Greg Palast again, 24 years after Florida 2000, is still ranting on voter registration rules. It's the same issue. And where are we with it? So the next 4 years, we're going to have to, God willing, we have to make sure there is an election in 28, along with the Olympics. And we have to make sure that we have a coherent, well-funded, well-established organization that will guarantee that our elections are fair and accurate. We have all the tools. We know the ins and outs. There's not much left to discover here on how to do a fair election. What we need now is the institutional wherewithal to guarantee that in 26 and 28, the will of the American people is properly recorded and enforced. And with those words, we will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you, everybody. Really, what a wonderful group of people. And come back in 2 weeks and we'll have way more to say about it. Okay? No nukes, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Please go to our site and donate to grassrootsep.org. Click the donation link at the top left. Thank you.
All right, you guys. Thank you. No
Happy
nukes.
Tofurkey Day, everybody.
Yeah. We will see you. Aloha, mahalo. Lori, great to see you. And all you good folks.